away, leaving promissory notes. Paid, stay well, promise me, or memories enclosed in quotes. It's time to phone a friend or two, set a table, pour a drink, share a memory, or make one. Better far to swim than sink. Bless you, Phil. It's also important to note that in this new book, both Anne Marie, who edited it, along with Weston and a couple of others, they're responsible for all the photographs in this book, including the cover, which we think is quite handsome. Thank you, Weston, for the cover. Remembering Rembrandt on viewing the prodigal son. The light lingers long. After the silver sun enfolds the green walls, a serving girl snuffs the last lamp, yet reluctant to bed, stands in the shadows longing to understand the scene, forever caught eavesdropping. The mother leans on the doorframe, weakened in waiting. The costly currency of her prayers, all of her tears, all spent in prayer. A gentleman neighbor sinks to the step, legs crossed, arms folded, dressed in disbelief. His black hat weighted with wonder as he studies the kneeling figure. But the brother, the elder brother, stands richly robed, straight as pride, hands clasped in judgment on his walking staff, beard carefully trimmed, and an important turban accentuates the height of his critical spirit. No welcome in his eyes. The Sumerian night shrouds all questions. But the light lingers long. The eternal glow of the Father's face bathes the errant Son, no longer lost like a wayward sheep or a widow's coin, but found. Healing hands embrace the Son with unconditional love. His scabby, wretched form pressed close to the Father's heart. No questions, no judgment, no price of repatriation. The blood-red robe spreads wide, a mantle for the miscreant, the miserable, the misused. The prodigal is home. On a trip to Kiev, Ukraine, we were taken to visit the Chernobyl Museum. And it was right by the ticket booth as we entered that there's a fiery picture of Chernobyl and a second one right beside it of 9/11. We wondered at the strange juxtaposition of these two paintings, and the script underneath was translated as something about everybody has accidents. I call the poem Aftermath. Addition. 9/11 scenes scorch the walls near the ticket booth. Flames leap to the ceiling and sear the soul. Why here? Why this jarring juxtaposition of attack and accident on a dingy side street in Kiev, Ukraine? The addition of 9/11 to 486 is strange math indeed. Continue adding 76 village, 90 kilometers, 30 years, adding loss and distance and time to thousands of lives, an incalculable sum total of grief. Red as rosy apples spinning down the museum staircase from painted trees, branches angled in tortured anguish. Subtraction. Under a great bird crafted of netting, wings of black and white spread wide in flight, like doves of peace, fleeing from ravenous vultures hungry for blood. We sink to small stools before a video screen, a helicopter speaker blaring orders to evacuate, almost drowned out by the screams of terrified children being bundled into buses to be hurried away for 2 or 3 days. In the center stands an altar from a local church, surrounded by the hauntingly beautiful young faces subtracted from life. Multiplication. Multiply disasters of radiated fields, infected fish thrashing the waterways flowing south to Kiev, the populous capital. Include the silenced factories and skeleton stores idling in ghost towns, dancing a macabre circle of death. Times the loss of 76 villages and corrupted fields condemned for 30 years. Count the cost of babies born with deformities and cancers riding the winds across frozen fields. Division. Divide the guilt of accident or unauthorized experiment, Ukrainian workers or Russian authorities, admission of explosion or cover-up, immediate evacuation or wait and see, calling for expert disaster help, or, quote, let the people celebrate May Day with dances and contaminated flowers. Divide lies from truth. 76 village signs, traditional black and white, slashed with the red, meaning finished. Overhead, a wreath of indigenous wormwood. Translation, Chernobyl. As noted in the New York Times, can it be divided from Revelation 8:15? And finally, you remember perhaps several years ago when St. Bede's was being built, Ed was inviting the poets to come and write on some piece in the church. And previous to that, Pat Vermillion had given a workshop at one of our festivals, and she had suggested drawing what you see before you want to write about it. Well, I can't draw a straight line with a ruler. But when we went into St. Bede's, of all the wonderful things that are there, I thought I understand perhaps best the altar. So there I stood in trepidation long before the church was completed, and I attempted to draw the markings on the altar and the veins of marble that cross the top. And so this is my picture of the altar of St. Bede's. The altar stands alone, atop a platform round as planet Earth, supported by the very breath of God. 3 stone steps trace the circumference, both barrier and gate to all who would presume to enter here. The brilliant block wrestled from the womb of time, metamorphosed by ancient fire deep in the Carrera. Of such marble, Michelangelo sculpted young David and the passionate pietas of Mary the Virgin with the promised Messiah. The altar stands alone, white cloud marble, chiseled now to a perfect square under workmen's careful hands. 16 side carvings suggest pillars supporting mighty weight, perhaps the 12 tribes of our foundation, or 12 apostles of faith, fused like limestone into the marble truth of the 4 Gospels. Cold as the melting snows of Mount Hermon, rushing to freshen the Sea of Galilee, and sparse gray veins run like the Jordan River and the Jabbok stream into the Dead Sea, promised to flow fresh and sweet when Messiah reigns. The altar stands alone, open, accessible to all repentant people desiring confirmation of forgiveness, reminiscent of altars of sacrifice in the wilderness and altars of thanksgiving in the beautiful land, to commune with the living God, partake of the bread of his presence and the costly cup of salvation, love lavished on a lonely world by the resurrected Messiah. Come, all ye who are heavy laden, and he will give you